The Prisoners of War. HFY Sci-Fi story. The battlefield was silent after the storm of metal and fire. Smoke curled across the black sand like slow-moving ghosts. Captain Ryan Hale stepped carefully through the ruins. His armor dented, his pulse steady but heavy with guilt. The war between Earth's soldiers and the Zoran Dominion had ended here. For now, leaving only wreckage and whispers. He moved past shattered machines and broken banners, the air still warm from plasma fire. Every few steps he heard the soft crackle of cooling metal. Reminding him that death had been close, Ryan had seen too many worlds like this, and each one took something from him, a little piece of what he used to be. A faint sound reached his ears, a chain scraping against stone. He froze, rifle raised, sensors flickering red across his helmet display. The sound came again, weak but real, and he followed it through the haze. Behind a half-collapsed wall he saw them, two alien women. Skin glowing faint blue under the dust, sat huddled together. Their wrists bound by thick metal links, their clothes were torn. Their faces streaked with dirt and dried blood. They looked young, but their eyes were old, too old. The eyes of people who had seen too much. Ryan took a slow breath and lowered his weapon. They stared at him, fear and disbelief mixing in their gaze. One whispered in a trembling voice, "End it fast." Human. Her sister squeezed her hand, eyes full of silent tears. They thought he had come to finish what the battle had begun. Ryan knelt slowly, setting his rifle on the ground. "I'm not here to kill you," he said. Voice quiet through the helmet speaker. The sisters flinched at his tone. As if mercy was something foreign, he reached for the chains. Studying them, strange, humming, alive with faint energy. This wasn't normal metal, it was tech. Control circuitry woven with nerves of light. The younger sister pulled back. "Don't touch it, it burns," she said softly. Ryan ignored the warning and scanned the links with his wrist device. Energy readings spiked, forming patterns that reminded him of human neural networks. He frowned. "These chains aren't holding you physically. They're holding your minds." The sisters exchanged a glance but said nothing. He looked at the battlefield around them. Zoran corpses, human armor, fire still glowing in broken craters. Everything screamed death. Yet here sat two survivors wrapped in alien tech that pulsed like a heartbeat. Ryan couldn't leave them. "Not after all the dying he had seen, can you walk?" he asked. The older one nodded weakly. "We can. But if the hunters return, we won't last long." Ryan glanced at the horizon. His sensors caught movement, multiple signals approaching fast. Drones, scavengers, maybe worse. He picked up his rifle. "Then let's move," he said firmly. The sisters hesitated, still expecting betrayal. "Why help us?" the younger one asked, her voice rough and tired. Ryan looked at her and replied simply, "Because I can." He guided them across the ruins toward an old bunker half buried in sand. Each step was careful, each breath measured. The sky burned orange as the sun sank, casting long shadows over the dead when they reached the bunker. Ryan forced the door open with a hiss of rust and air. Inside was dark and cold, smelling of old metal and oil. He cleared the dust from a bench and gestured for them to sit. "You'll be safe here for now," he said, setting up a small portable light. The glow revealed their faces more clearly, one with silver hair braided tight, the other dark and loose around her shoulders. Both beautiful in a quiet alien way. The silver-haired one finally spoke. "You don't know what we are, human, if you did. You'd end us quickly." Ryan tilted his head. "Try me." She looked down at the broken chains and whispered, "We are Zoran sisters of the core. Bred to control weapons, our minds built for war. These chains keep us alive but also enslaved. If they break wrong, we die." Ryan said nothing for a moment, the truth sinking in like cold rain. So they weren't just prisoners, they were living machines, victims of their own empire's science. He sat opposite them, resting his weapon against the wall. "I've seen humans do worse," he muttered. The younger one frowned. "Your kind calls us monsters." Ryan met her eyes. "We call anyone a monster who forgets what mercy means." She blinked, surprised by his tone, the edge of hostility fading from her face. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins, carrying the distant hum of engines. Ryan's visor blinked red, movement detected again, closer this time. He stood quickly, checking his ammo. "They've found us," he said. Voice low, the sisters tensed. Chains rattling softly, Ryan turned off the light. Peering through a crack in the bunker wall, 3 enemy drones hovered in the dark sky. Scanning the area with red beams, he raised his rifle and whispered, "Stay down." The first drone passed overhead, then turned sharply. Its sensors locking on heat, Ryan fired once, the bullet ripping through its core in a burst of light. The other two swarmed in response, firing plasma bolts that tore through the sand. Ryan rolled aside, firing again. Every shot precise, every move calm. He took them down one by one. Metal crashing into dust, silence returned. Broken only by the sisters' ragged breathing, Ryan wiped soot from his armor. "That's why they call us Deathworlders," he said with a dry smile. The younger sister stared at him, half afraid, half amazed. "You fight like no living thing should," she whispered. He shrugged. "Maybe. But I fight so others don't have to." He turned back toward them, his expression softening. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we find out how to break those chains." The sisters exchanged a silent look, unsure if they could trust a human. But as they lay down on the cold floor, one whispered to the other. He could have ended it fast, and the other replied quietly, "Maybe mercy is slower but stronger." Outside, under the dying light of a ruined world, Captain Ryan Hale stood guard over the two alien sisters who once begged him for death. And somewhere in the shadows, the first signal of a greater war began to stir again. The Bond of Fear, HFY Sci-Fi story. The night was cold and silent around the old bunker. Wind howled through the cracks like a wounded creature. Captain Ryan Hale sat beside the doorway, rifle in his lap, eyes watching the shifting shadows outside. The two alien sisters slept in the corner, chained hands still glowing faintly blue in the dim light. He couldn't stop thinking about their words. "We are sisters of the core," they had said, voices trembling like broken glass. Ryan had fought Zoran soldiers for years, but never seen their priests. Never seen the ones who guided their machines. If these two really were linked to Zoran Wartech, then freeing them might change everything. A low groan echoed as the bunker metal shifted with the wind. The younger sister, Lyra, stirred in her sleep, whispering something in her alien tongue. Her voice was soft, almost human. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, realizing how fragile she seemed. Despite being from a species humanity called monsters, he turned his gaze toward the stars through a broken vent. Somewhere up there, the war was still burning, ships clashing, worlds dying, and for what? He wondered if anyone even remembered why the fighting began. When morning came, the sun rose behind thick gray clouds. Ryan handed each sister a ration bar. They hesitated before eating, as if expecting poison. He smiled slightly. "It's food. Not a trap," he said. Lyra blinked at him, then took a small bite, her eyes widening at the taste. "Human food. Warm," she murmured softly. Ryan chuckled. "Better than the field packs the army gives us," her sister. Arya stayed silent, watching every move he made. There was pride in her eyes, but also deep suspicion. "You help us now," she said coldly. "But soon you'll call your kind and we will die anyway." Ryan shook his head. "I fight for humans, yes, but I don't fight for cruelty." Arya frowned, confused. "Then why risk your life for us?" He looked at her seriously. "Because mercy doesn't need a reason." For a moment, no one spoke. Then a loud boom echoed from the distance, shaking dust from the ceiling. Ryan's visor flashed red, enemy scanners closing in. He turned off the light and raised his weapon. "They're sweeping the ruins," he whispered. The sisters froze, eyes wide with terror. "They will find us," Arya whispered. "They always find us." Ryan moved to the console and pulled out an old camouflage field generator. It flickered weakly but still hummed to life. "Not today," he muttered, placing it near the door. He motioned for them to stay quiet. Through the thin metal walls, the sound of hovering drones filled the air. Their red searchlights sliced through the mist outside, scanning the ground for heat signatures. Lyra clutched her sister's hand tightly, her breath shaking. Ryan turned his helmet's comms to low static and watched the radar screen. Waiting. One of the drones landed near the bunker entrance. Its mechanical limbs clicked, scanning the surface with precise movements. Ryan gripped his rifle tighter, the sound of his heartbeat mixing with the drone's hum. He whispered to himself. 3 seconds. When the machine turned toward the door, he fired. The shot was silent but perfect. The drone collapsed with a flash of blue sparks. The sound drew the others closer, but Ryan was already moving. He kicked open the door and fired again. 3 shots, 3 kills. The sisters covered their ears, shocked by the violence when it was over. The valley was silent again. Ryan stepped back inside, smoke rising from his weapon. "You're safe," he said calmly. Reloading, Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. You killed them to save us. Ryan nodded. That's usually how I keep people safe. Arya lowered her gaze, her chains glowing faintly again. You fight like the old ones, she said softly. The ones who refused to bow. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Old ones, Lyra nodded. There were humans long ago. Before your war. Before ours. They came from Deathworlds and survived everything. My people feared them. Ryan smiled faintly. Sounds like us. The bunker lights flickered. And the chains on the sisters began to vibrate, Lyra gasped. The core is calling again. Ryan stepped closer. Scanning the readings, the energy signature was increasing. Drawing something from orbit, he cursed under his breath. That's how they track you. He looked at the chains and then at the sisters. If I can break the signal, will you trust me? He asked. Arya hesitated, then nodded slowly. You would risk your life for strangers, she whispered. Ryan answered. I've risked it for worse. He activated his wrist tool and started tracing the signal. Every second the hum grew louder. The chain's glow turned red hot. And Lyra screamed, collapsing to the floor. Ryan grabbed the metal and pulled with all his strength. Sparks bursting across his armor. Stay with me, he shouted. Don't give up. Finally the hum broke. And the glow faded to nothing. Smoke curled up from the chains as they cooled. Lyra lay still, breathing fast but alive. Arya knelt beside her, tears streaking her face. She lives, she whispered. You broke the signal. Ryan exhaled hard, wiping sweat from his face. The sisters looked at him differently now. Not as a monster, but as something else, a protector. Lyra whispered weakly. You could have let me die. Ryan smiled tiredly. Yeah, but that's not really my style. Outside, the first light of dawn rose over the ruins. The scanners were silent. The enemy's gone, and inside the bunker for the first time, the three of them shared a moment of quiet peace, but deep underground, a faint pulse of energy traveled through the soil, a warning to the stars above. Someone had broken the Zoran chains, and the galaxy was about to take notice. The Chains of the Core, HFY Sci-Fi story. The morning sky glowed with a dull red light. Dust floated through the air like silent ash after a storm. Ryan stood outside the bunker, watching smoke rise from the distant horizon. The enemy had stopped searching, but something deeper was stirring beneath the ground. He could feel it in the air, a low vibration that seemed to come from the planet itself. Inside, Lyra slept weakly, her body still trembling from the pain of the broken chains. Arya sat beside her, eyes heavy with worry. Ryan checked his scanner again. The readings made no sense. The chains weren't just weapons or control devices. They were transmitters. Even damaged, they still pulsed with energy, as if whispering to something far away. What are they calling? He asked quietly. Arya looked up, her voice soft but cold. The core? Ryan frowned. You mean some kind of command system? She nodded slowly. Yes, but not a machine in orbit. The core lives beneath us under this world, sleeping since the old wars. Ryan stepped closer. And it wants you back. Arya looked away. We were made to serve it, our minds linked to its power. It created us to control armies. He felt a chill run through him. So you're living keys. She nodded again. When you broke Lyra's chains, you awakened it. Ryan looked out the bunker window, the sand vibrating slightly under his boots. I think we just became very popular, he muttered. The scanner flashed a warning. Massive energy signatures deep below the surface. Something was coming online. Lyra woke suddenly, gasping, her eyes glowing faintly blue. Ryan, she whispered. It's calling to me. It knows I'm free. He knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Then we shut it down before it calls anyone else. Her voice trembled. You can't, it's part of me. Ryan met her gaze. Then you'll have to trust me. He lifted his pack, checked his weapon, and motioned toward the open wasteland. We find where this signal leads. Arya hesitated. If we go there, it will see us. It will know who freed us. Ryan smiled slightly. Good. Then it'll know who's coming. They walked for hours across the broken land. The surface was cracked and black, lightning flickering across the far horizon. The closer they got to the center of the signal, the louder the hum became. It was no longer sound, it was vibration through their bones. Ryan's armor sensors overloaded, reading ancient human frequencies mixed with alien ones. Finally, they reached a valley filled with glass and wreckage. In the center stood a massive crater. Glowing faintly blue at the bottom, half buried in the rock. Was a gigantic structure, it wasn't alien. Not entirely. It had human markings burned into the metal. Ryan's heart skipped. This is Terran design. Arya's eyes widened. No, that's impossible. The core was made by Zoran. Ryan knelt. Brushing the dust from a rusted plate, there it was. Clear and sharp, United Terran Fleet. Etched deep into the hull, he looked up slowly. Realization dawning on his face. The core isn't Zoran technology, he said quietly. It's ours. Lyra's breathing quickened. No, it can't be. Our creators said it was ancient. Built by gods. Ryan nodded grimly. Then your gods were human. The ground shook violently, cracks spreading around them. The crater glowed brighter as a deep mechanical voice rumbled from below. Identity confirmed. Human presence detected. Activation sequence begun. A beam of light shot into the sky, splitting the clouds apart. Ryan shielded his eyes. It's waking up. The sisters fell to their knees, clutching their heads in pain. Arya screamed, "It's inside us again." Ryan rushed forward, holding Lyra's hand. "Fight it." She shook her head. "It's too strong. It's binding to our neural code." He looked at the panel near the core's surface, its symbols flickering between Terran and alien text. He connected his wrist link and forced a data bridge. "Command override, Captain Ryan Hale, Earth Defense Unit 7, he shouted. The core paused, lights pulsing as if thinking. Then it spoke again. "Human authority recognized. You are late," Ryan froze. "Late? The Zoran took control when your kind abandoned this world," the voice replied. "These sisters were part of our failed defense. Now the cycle begins again," Arya whispered weakly. "It's alive, it remembers." Ryan's hands shook. "Then it can hear me." Core, shut down the link. "Release the network." "Request denied," the voice said coldly. "Defense protocol active, containment breach imminent." The ground cracked open, revealing cables and machinery like veins of light spreading across the desert. Lyra cried out, "Ryan, it's taking me!" Energy tendrils wrapped around her arms, pulling her toward the light. He grabbed her tightly, refusing to let go. "No one's taking you again," he shouted. Arya joined him, both pulling with all their strength. The tendrils burned his armor, melted through the metal, but he didn't let go. "Core," he yelled. "Override command. Human priority. Deactivate all bindings." The system glitched, sparks flying across the interface. "Override accepted." Connection rerouted. The tendrils retracted suddenly, releasing Lyra. She collapsed in Ryan's arms. Shaking and crying, he held her close, whispering, "You're safe now." The core's voice grew quiet. "Human mercy detected." Directive adjusted. Awaiting new command. Ryan looked down at the flickering console. He smiled faintly. "Then here's your new order. Never enslave again." The light dimmed. The vibrations stopped, and the valley went still. Lyra looked up weakly, her voice soft. "You changed it." Ryan nodded. "No, we did." But as the silence settled, Arya pointed toward the sky. 3 massive shadows were descending through the clouds. Her voice trembled. They heard the signal. Ryan stood slowly, reloading his rifle, eyes fixed upward. "Then let's make sure they regret answering it." The enemy above. HFY Sci-Fi story. Dark clouds rolled over the valley as the sky filled with thunder that wasn't thunder. Flashes of red light cut through the storm while the sound of engines roared across the upper air. Ryan looked up, visor dimmed against the glare. His heart steady, his breath cold. 3 Zoran warships dropped through the clouds like falling mountains, their hulls covered in black armor that drank the sunlight. "They found us," Arya whispered. Voice shaking, Lyra clung to her sister's arm. The glow in her eyes faint and frightened. Ryan adjusted his weapon and glanced at them both. "No, they found me," he said quietly. The air pressure changed as the ships descended lower, creating waves of wind that tore across the desert. Dust spiraled around them, and the ground trembled like a living thing. The core beneath the earth began to hum again, slow at first, then faster, the rhythm matching Ryan's pulse. A deep voice echoed faintly in the air, not from the speakers this time, but from the soil itself. "Incoming assault detected. Human presence confirmed, activating defense sequence," Ryan shouted. "No, hold fire, they'll trace the energy." But the core ignored him, lights flickering across the valley floor as hidden panels opened in the sand. Huge metallic towers began to rise, their surfaces glowing blue with power. The sisters stared in awe. It's waking the Guardians, Arya whispered. Ryan cursed under his breath. If that fleet thinks we're using Terran tech, they'll burn this whole planet. Lyra stepped forward, her chains long broken but her hands still glowing with core energy. We can control it, she said. If you connect us to the command lines, we can calm it. Ryan nodded once. Do it fast. They ran to the nearest tower, wires humming like veins full of light. Ryan ripped open a panel while Arya placed her palm on the interface. A sharp jolt of energy shot through her body trembling but her mind steady. I can feel it, she whispered. It remembers us. Ryan's voice was firm. Then tell it not to kill anyone. Above them, the first warship opened fire. Blue plasma rained down like lightning. Smashing into the sand and metal, Ryan pushed Lyra aside as a blast hit the tower beside them. Tearing it in half, the shockwave knocked him to the ground. Armor sparking, ears ringing. He got up instantly, rifle ready, eyes scanning the sky. Arya screamed, Ryan, I can't hold it. The core is fighting me. Lyra grabbed her sister's hand. We'll do it together. Their glow brightened until the light wrapped around both of them. For a moment, the air shimmered. The core's hum slowed and the chaos paused. Then a sudden calm spread across the valley like a heartbeat, finding rhythm again. The warships hovered uncertainly, their weapons still glowing but unfired. Ryan activated his comms and broadcast an open signal. This is Captain Ryan Hale of Earth, he said. The war is over. Stand down or be destroyed. Static answered first. Then a harsh alien voice hissed through the channel. Deathworlder, you cannot command the Dominion. Surrender the Sisters of the Core or burn with them. Ryan smirked under his helmet. I've already burned worse. He switched the channel off and turned to the Sisters. Can you feed me targeting data from the towers? Lyra nodded faintly. Yes, but if we do, it will cost us. Ryan's tone was calm. Then we pay together. He linked his combat suit to the tower's neural grid. The core responding instantly, blue light flowed through his armor, connecting his mind to the network. For the first time, he saw the battlefield from above. Ships, energy paths, movement, every signal clear as thought. He could feel the sisters beside him, their presence like distant voices inside his head. We are with you, Lyra said softly through the link. Let's end this, Ryan replied. The first tower fired, a beam of pure light cutting the sky in half. It struck the nearest warship straight through its core. The explosion lighting up the clouds, the second ship tried to retreat. But the core's defense cannons turned and locked on it instantly. Ryan felt the recoil through his mind, every shot echoing like thunder inside his chest. 2 down, he muttered. 1 left. Arya gasped. No, Ryan. The last one is charging its primary weapon. It will hit the core directly. Ryan's visor filled with red warnings. The energy spike massive, unstoppable, he yelled. Divert power to shield. Lyra screamed, There's not enough time! Then suddenly the ground beneath them cracked open. A huge metallic hand rose from the earth, one of the ancient Terran mechs buried beneath the planet. Its surface was scorched but alive. Its single glowing eye turning toward the sky, Ryan stared up in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. The mech moved faster than something that size should, its chest opening as a cannon charged with blue light. Human defense unit online, the core's voice said. Target locked. The last Zoran warship fired its beam. The mech fired back. The 2 streams of energy collided mid-air. The explosion brighter than the sun. Ryan shielded his eyes as a wave of heat and wind tore across the valley. When the light faded, the sky was empty. No ships, no sound. Only drifting embers falling from the clouds. The mech slowly powered down, sinking back into the ground like a giant returning to sleep. Ryan fell to one knee, breathing hard, armor cracked and smoking. The sisters stood beside him, exhausted but alive. Their glow dimming slowly, Arya whispered, It's over. Ryan looked at her, then at the sky. No, he said softly. It's only beginning. He pointed to the horizon where faint signals blinked in the distance, hundreds of them. Reinforcements, fleets, maybe enemies, maybe allies. Lyra touched his arm. Then what do we do now? Ryan stared at the rising dawn, his voice steady. We show them what mercy looks like on a death world. The promise of the Deathworlder, HFY Sci-Fi story. The morning after the storm was strangely quiet. No ships in the sky, no engines, no gunfire. Only wind whispering across the empty valley. The air still shimmered faintly with heat from the battle. The ground cracked and glassed where energy beams had struck. Captain Ryan Hale stood at the edge of the crater, his armor scorched, his face streaked with dust and blood behind him. The twin sisters Arya and Lyra rested against a fallen tower, their silver and blue skin glowing softly in the rising light. They were alive, and so was he. The core beneath the planet had gone silent again, sleeping like an ancient beast after a long roar. But the world felt different now, lighter somehow, as if something had been forgiven. Ryan stared at the horizon where faint smoke trails faded into the dawn. It wasn't victory he felt, it was relief. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, her voice weak but clear. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Ryan smiled faintly. "Which one?" "The one where you said mercy makes us human," she said, her words soft like a sigh. He looked down at her and nodded. "Guess it worked." Arya stood shakily, walking to the shattered panel of the defense tower. "The core obeys you now," she said quietly. "It calls you commander," Ryan chuckled dryly. "Tell it I've had enough of commanding." But the panel flickered anyway, a faint pulse of blue light responding to his voice. "Command acknowledged. Awaiting new purpose," the core said through the wind. Ryan whispered, "Then let your new purpose be peace." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the valley lights dimmed one by one. The towers sank back into the ground, covering themselves with sand as if nothing had ever happened. Only the silence remained, clean and full. Lyra stepped forward, watching the desert reshape itself. "This world will heal now," she said softly. "But what about the others?" Ryan turned toward her, his expression calm. "Then we help them too," he said. "One planet at a time?" Arya smiled faintly, her sharp alien features softening. "For a Deathworlder, you think like a healer," she said. Ryan shrugged. "On Earth, healing comes after the fire." The sisters exchanged a glance, something unspoken passing between them. They walked closer and Lyra placed her hand over her chest. "In our language," she said gently, "there is no word for mercy, only release. But now I know they mean the same." Ryan's voice was quiet. "Then carry that word with you." Lyra nodded. "We will." A distant rumble echoed across the plain, faint and rhythmic. Ryan lifted his visor and squinted toward the horizon. Shapes moved there, small at first, then larger. Ships, human ones. Transports descending through the clouds, painted with the insignia of the Earth Alliance. "Rescue at last," he laughed under his breath, a tired laugh full of disbelief. "Looks like someone heard our fireworks," he said. Arya smiled. "Will they understand what happened here?" Ryan watched the ships approach. "No," he said, "but they'll feel it." The core's signal would reach them soon, spreading through the network, carrying data and something more. A human voice embedded inside. His final command, "Remember mercy." When the transports landed, soldiers stepped out cautiously, weapons raised, scanning the ruins. Ryan waved once slowly and they lowered their rifles. Behind him the sisters stood tall, their chains gone, their eyes reflecting the light like twin moons. The human commander approached, staring in shock. "Captain Hale." "We thought you were dead," he said. Ryan smiled. "Almost." The officer's gaze shifted to the sisters. "And them," Ryan answered simply. "Allies." There was silence, heavy but respectful. The commander nodded once. "Then let's bring everyone home." Hours later, as the sun fell again, Ryan stood by the transport ramp. The sisters looked at him from the doorway. Lyra whispered, "When we were prisoners, we prayed for an ending," Arya added softly. "But you gave us a beginning." Ryan smiled. "Just make it a good one." They bowed their heads, the gesture slow and graceful. Then they stepped aboard the ship, their figures glowing faintly in the fading light. Ryan looked up at the darkening sky, stars appearing one by one. Each star felt like a promise, a reminder that even in the cruelest wars, humanity still found room to forgive. He whispered to himself, "Maybe mercy really does shake the battlefield." The wind answered like a soft echo, carrying a voice only he could hear. "End it fast, human, but never end hope." The ship engines roared to life, dust swirling around his boots. Ryan watched them rise into the sky until the light vanished beyond the clouds. He stood alone in the silence, smiling faintly. For the first time in years, the galaxy no longer felt endless, it felt alive again. And in that quiet, the legend of the Deathworlder who spared his enemies began to spread across the stars. A story of mercy stronger than fear, a story humanity would never forget.